They forgot that I did not. I don't know which one it is.
I really enjoyed
really
the
look
flag
crazy.
in front of the cemetery.
Mhm.
Up
yeah.
by where I live, out on the highway, it's so pretty.
Mhm.
Oh,
Kind of quiet, isn't it?
5:35, so I'd like to call the meeting to order. If you could join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, nothing under proclamations, so we'll move on to public comments. Gary,
I am here representing.
you can, you even get the microphone. Yeah, I can tell.
We're representing the group Brown County United, and we are requesting use of the Korthanke Fountain this Saturday from 11 to 1:30. We're going to be gathering to celebrate our veterans, to acknowledge Flag Day, and to just celebrate our community and talk about how we can use community service and civic engagement as a form of expressing our democratic rights, or like a democracy. So anyway, we'll have some music, we'll have a couple of speakers. It's just supposed to be a community building event.
Any questions?
We're also going to take collections for the food pantry.
Yes, yes, yep. There's a group speaking will be the Trinity Center, and we will be taking donations for the food pantry at that.
Okay.
Do we need a motion for that?
yes. I'll make a motion. To grant the request to use the Korthanke Fountain. Park.
On June 14th from 11 to 1:30?
Yep.
11 to 1:30.
June 14th, 11 to 1:30.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to allow the use of the Korthanke Fountain Park. Are any other questions? If not, Don?
All in favor?
Motion passed 5-0.
All right, thank you.
Karen, thanks for coming, Karen.
Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Is there, the commission have any questions or Brad, anything to add to this?
I do not. I have a question. Yes. On the Chadwin pay request, they've got their contract price broken down by several line items, and it looks like they're billing more than what that line item is valued at. Does that mean there's extra work for that item or out of scope stuff? Those last two. line items, the work order, those two work orders, their billing, total billing to date is higher than what their scheduled value is.
With Chadwin on that in order to get to the bottom of that, but I don't have an answer for you at this moment.
So then do we need to wait to vote on that or?
Yes,
Okay. To make that motion, Dave,
But the consent agenda,
to amend the consent agenda by removing item D.
yeah, I'll make that motion to remove item D from the consent agenda.
Second?
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda with the deletion of item D. Any further discussion? Not done.
Favor?
Aye. Motion passed 5-0. Moving on to old business, ordinance 2140. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda
As amended.
as amended.
Second.
Oh, yeah.
Been moving second to approve the consent agenda as amended. Any further discussion? If not, Don? Aye. Motion passed 5-0. Thank you, Don, for catching that. I appreciate it. Okay. So on to the ordinance for the amended vicious animal ordinance.
so this is ordinance 2140, and what this does is it further clarifies the vicious animal ordinance that we had a vicious animal ordinance under our current city code. This adds some further clarification to that vicious animal ordinance. And what this also does do is it also would repeal the ban on pit bulls and Rottweilers.
So 2 meetings ago, the commission voted to repeal that ban. So that's section 2 of this ordinance. And then the commission asked us to come up with a more comprehensive vicious animal ordinance, which this is. So Brad and I have had a chance to look at it. We sent it to Chief Gruber. I think Chief Gruber sent it to all of his street officers so they'd have a chance to see if they think there was anything wrong with the enforcement mechanisms in there. Didn't hear any feedback negatively, I guess. So I'm just here if you have any questions about it. Yeah.
I already know the answer to this, I think, but I'm gonna ask it. This ordinance has all kinds of stuff in here about vicious dogs and their owners and impounding and all this. There's nothing in here for anybody that gets bit or hurt. Is there any way under section G, authority of the municipal judge, that he could somehow require the animal owner to be responsible for any medical bills or whatever, if the dog had rabies or got vicious and needed stitches?
Sure.
Or tore up somebody?
If a complaint is filed in city court and there's a conviction, restitution is under the authority of the municipal judge. I would say restitution, though, in the criminal sense, doesn't include other things. It could include reimbursement of the cost, but not necessarily lost wages or something from having to go to the hospital. But that's something you would be able to do through the city court system if there's a conviction on a complaint that's filed.
That's a court function, not
Is a court
something we
function.
need to put in the ordinance.
No, restitution is authorized through the court, the creation of our municipal court. We collect it in theft cases, for example. If somebody is missing an item, there's restitution that's typical in that kind of scenario. We've had restitution ordered in similar cases so far without it being in the ordinance. Even I think if there's a plea agreement to a lesser charge or something, as long as restitution is included in that, it's typically ordered. And our collection agency does I think a very good job of cleaning that up. We monitor it while the offender is on probation to make sure payments are coming in, but our city court clerk is fantastic about making sure everybody's on time with their payments. Or
And if it went above and beyond the restitution, that would turn into a civil matter.
Sure. So now typically these kind of things, homeowners insurance may cover it, and that would be an avenue to go. You wouldn't be able to collect restitution twice, but yes, if there's other like ancillary or collateral expenses associated with it, you could never get those through the criminal case, but you could always get that through a civil action.
A question that I did have was regarding the impoundment. Where would the animal be impounded?
Contract that with the Humane Society. So, well, as long as we contract with the Brown County Humane Society, that's
Okay.
who does our impounding right now.
Okay.
So,
Other question. There's an article here that talks about if the animal bit someone and there was no record of any kind of vaccinations. If the animal turned out to have rabies, then what happens to that animal? Is that covered under one of these other, if it's considered serious harm or death to any person, that the law enforcement can take action?
yeah, the way I wrote this was with the intent that law enforcement destruction of the animal would only be one of last resort if the animal is unable to be caught. We do have a tranquilizer gun to put down the animal, but destruction would only be obviously if there's active signs of rabies, foaming at the mouth, something like that, and it became a danger for an officer to try to impound the animal. That would be an option the officer would have. This would be to destroy the animal on site. But I don't know it's not an adoptable animal, so we'd have to figure out that.
And if the animal were to have to be destroyed, I would assume law enforcement would, I don't know any other way to say this, but we've had to literally send the head of an animal to K-State years ago to determine whether it had rabies or not.
Sure,
And they were really big on not damaging the head.
yeah. I know our officers are aware, and that's why there's this 10-day kind of quarantine to make sure no symptoms of that develop so we can get the testing done. But that's why there's a mandatory impound for animals that are not registered with the city, because if they are registered, we would have the proof of vaccination. I know there was one recently, but fortunately the animal was registered. We had proof of vaccination, and the
Okay.
person that got bit didn't have to go through that painful and expensive rabies treatment.
I think it's very well written. The ordinance covers about everything.
Yes, it does. Do we still have a animal control?
No, our law enforcement,
Oh,
the
okay.
police department takes care of the animal control part of that.
Didn't we have animal control?
We've had one in the past. I don't think
Yeah.
we've had one since I've been on since
Okay.
17, but
It's been a while. I know that for a while, city employees were doing it as well. I know I used to do it. Yeah, at one time here too.
There are no other questions. I entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 2140, amending the vicious animal ordinance and repealing the ban on pit bulls and Rottweilers.
Second,
It's been moved and seconded to adopt ordinance 2140. Any further questions? Not Don?
All in favor?
Aye. Motion passed 5-0. And so just to be clear, it's still another 30 days before it's legal to own these pups in the city, or is it now okay since the ordinance has been passed?
we just need to publish it one time, so it should be published Friday. if I come sign it before noon. So hopefully published Friday and it would be effective at that point.
Okay.
Thank you, Andy.
Moving on to new business, the North Lift Station time extension. Brad?
Yeah, so this is a time extension for the CDBG portion of this. I want to be clear that this is not another construction time extension. That the May 30, that would have been the May 30th substantial completion was still in effect. The training for this facility is going to be conducted this Thursday and Friday. I believe they have just very minor things that they're still doing, but like I said, startups slated for this Thursday and Friday. This is really just for the closeout of the project. It has things like the punch list completion, engineering approval. That's expected for August 2025, and the final closeout would be September 14th, 2025. And so this is really just an administrative. This is for the CDBG portion of this project.
Good to see that we're finally drawing this thing to a close.
Yes.
Despite all your work, Dave. I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion to authorize a 3-month time extension to CDBG Sewer Improvement Project 22 PF 020 for a new completion date of September 14th, 2025, and authorize the mayor to sign all necessary documents.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to authorize a 3-month time extension to CDBG Sewer Improvement Project. Any further discussion? That's what he said, mayor and city clerk. No, he did. He didn't, but would you amend your motion to that? To add city clerk? Authorize the mayor and the city clerk.
I'll amend my motion to include the city clerk.
I'll
Approve the
second.
documents.
Okay.
Is that too fast?
No, it won't. It won't be there, so sorry. Okay, we're ready for vote, Don.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0. Item 3, parks tractor bids.
We opened bids last week and received from 3 dealerships, I believe. And after discussion with Brad and my Brad, as I call them, we are going to recommend the purchase of the John Deere 452M tractor from Hiawatha Implement for the full amount of $35,230.92. It meets all of the requirements for our department's usage. We had went out to rebid to get more specific details on how to lease to purchase, but with the bid that came in, we felt comfortable to just purchase.
I understand it right. The bid from John Deere, they won't have the tractor till next year.
Correct, but he did make, I think he said December of 25, and they are willing to give us something temporary
With no
to use in the
charge.
meantime. Excuse
No
me,
extra charge for that.
I don't think so. Wasn't in the bid.
That was not in the bid.
Okay.
I would entertain a motion.
But I would just, how are we planning on paying for this?
We will be paying for this from money that was transferred to the capital improvement fund from Parks and Rec last year.
And that,
So out of the capital improvement fund is how we're paying for this.
yeah, that's the problem I have with it. Capital improvement should be for infrastructures, not for a depreciating asset like a tractor. So like when I was talking about we should just buy one, I was kind of implying that we should buy the one that we currently had. Do we have an option to lease this year by year like we were and then buy it and then own it at the end of it?
Yes. Oh, no, not, go ahead.
Not with the original, not with the bids that came in. The original bid that we got for this tractor, that was the option for it. But in the April 14th meeting, we had wanted to go rebid for it because it was agreed at that time that we did not want to lease anything. And so we went out to rebid for this, and it does have a lease purchase option in this, which is something that we can look at if we don't want to just purchase this totally. I mean, on something like that, on a lease purchase, you're going to at least pay some interest to that, like through a bank, because that's what we would have to go through for something like this. I think it'd be better for the city, honestly, if we purchase this ourselves and then reimburse Fund 91 for this from the appropriate departments that will be using it.
So you're saying we'll reimburse the CIP fund? Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
I think it's good to see that we're getting a truck that's gonna fit our needs better.
Tractor.
Or truck. We talked about truck. That tractor. And simply because I know there's probably a whole lot more that you're using it for than that we even understand. So I want to make sure we have the best equipment and the safest equipment, so. And if it makes sense, if we're in a sense just making payments to ourselves, then we get the money where it needs to be. Make a motion to purchase the John Deere 4052 M tractor from Hiawatha Implement for the full amount of $35,230.92.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to buy the John Deere tractor. Any further discussion? Not done.
Favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Motion passed 4-1. Thank you, Stacy.
I'll
And
just stay up here.
well, I guess you can. And I also want to commend, I mean, it's nice that they're going to give us something to use until the new tractor comes in.
Yes, we are in dire need of a tractor at the moment. We haven't had one since April 1st, and we're starting to get behind on some projects. So,
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Okay, moving on to item 4, aquatic park fence.
So this is a project that is also needed for safety reasons. Our current fence is original, so 1998. It's been beat up by mowers and weed eaters and kids and all of that fun stuff. Some research for aluminum and steel fences, and kind of got a ballpark figure, which can I say that? Should I say that? Could be in a range between $42,000 and $52,000. For the exact measurements of the aquatic park, the Hiawatha Parks and Recreation Advisory Board for the past 2 years has been fundraising through the Hiawatha Community Foundation. It's 2 years about $15,000, so we were willing to put roughly $12,000 toward this. And so I'm just asking now if we can go out to bid, and then the city, we'll have ARPA money hopefully to offset the balance of that, whatever we select. So right now I'm just asking to go out to bid for the aquatic park fence.
You gotta bid it both ways, aluminum and rod iron.
Yeah, I think so. We, just with the information I collected, there's maybe, probably a $5,000 difference between the two. So I would just like to see kind of what numbers we get.
Yeah, it definitely is a safety issue.
Yes, absolutely.
Cause you can just walk right in there right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, I can see you've made
Do you
multiple
need a motion?
repairs to the
do
fence
that?
over there is trying to keep.
Yes, we have, I'm sorry, Brian, just a second. We have done multiple repairs, just along the baseline. We've tried different, just kind of Band-Aids. And yeah, we're ready for something much more permanent, obviously. Brian, I'm sorry, what was that?
You wanted to
I
know.
just,
Oh, okay. Yes, ready.
I would entertain a motion then.
I'll make a motion that we go out for bids for an aluminum or steel fence that would, for the aquatic park.
a second.
Been moved and seconded to go out for bid for fencing around the aquatic park. Any further discussion? If not, Don?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Thank you. And
Thank
I'm
you,
gonna
Stacy.
jet off to water aerobics right now.
Okay, moving on to resolution 2025-09 bond redemption. Brad?
So yes, when we went through the process of securing the Series 2025 bond for the water meter project and the traffic signal project, we had discussed paying off a few bonds early, and really what this is for is to accommodate that $54,000 expected bond payment for the water meter project. And so what we had is about around 23,000, approximately 23,000 for one bond from the water department. That would have been the Series 2011, Series 2012A, and 33,000 for the Series 2011. And so that would offset that cost. And really what this was for was to keep water rates from going up through our current project. And so I am recommending that we go ahead with this resolution and pay these bonds off early. It does have a kind of an effect as well on the economic development tax. It will also pay off the portion from 2012A for the economic development tax for the industrial fund. And so currently we have a 1/4 sales tax on that. And it'll make the entirety of that 1/4 sales tax available for economic development purposes in 2026. And so if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Do we have any questions? No. If not, I'd entertain a motion. Or
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2025-09 authorizing the early redemption of the Series 2011 and Series 2012A bonds and authorize the mayor and the city clerk to sign all the necessary documents.
Second.
Go ahead.
it's been moved and seconded to approve adopting resolution 2025-09. Any further discussion? No, adoption. No, Don?
Favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
I assume,
He's-
okay.
he's-
Motion passed 5-0. Item 6, asbestos remediation agreement.
Yes, so in discussion with city personnel and Andy Delaney, we had come up with an idea about some using Hortons. They have trained officers that can do some asbestos remediation work. So we have 2 properties here in town that we need to move forward with demolition on. And so what this would allow us to do is move forward with that demolition while we're getting people trained ourselves to have that done, but it will allow us to move forward with this demolition. And the cost of the city is going to be the wages for the officer involved, and all wages and benefits. It'll be the testing equipment, and it'll be the cost for the tests, I believe, the materials. And so that would be the cost of the city throughout this process. But this would allow us to go ahead and move forward with the demolition that has been delayed for through this asbestos process.
And you said just wages, not wages and benefits. Didn't you just say
We would
benefits?
be, so rather than contract with there's two officers that are certified down there, but rather than contract with the officers directly for liability reasons, we wanted to go through the city. So we would reimburse them for whatever their hourly cost is for that employee. So it will likely be an overtime.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But yes, if there are benefits associated with the hourly wage, it would be that as well, you know.
Now, are we still gonna move forward with getting some of our people trained, or are we just gonna?
Yes, we are. We're going to still move forward and move forward to getting somebody, probably a few people within the city of Hiawatha trained for this, but this just allows us to move forward more immediately.
Good.
Do you have
So-
an idea of the cost?
As far as I know what the costs for the employee are going to be, so knowing what our officers make, probably something pretty similar. I think it would, so I can't tell you an exact hourly rate. But the conversation I had with the chief of police down there is it won't be like a surplus on top of that. So I don't know what the lab fees are going to be, but they're required to be done anyway. And they're not going to charge us a surplus for their testing supplies, which should be minimal. So when they come into the house or the structure, they have to take some scrapings and send them off to the labs to see if there's an asbestos presence and then the remediation. So I don't know. I guess what we can do is before moving forward with any kind of testing, we'll make sure that the commission is aware of what the costs are going to be associated with that. So.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, if it's $1,000 a house or is it $100 a house? Because if it's going to cost $1,000, it might be more feasible to just hire it done and be done with it.
I get you. That makes sense. We'll get those costs locked down before we move forward with the demolition anyway. So, but at least this would allow someone to come in and get the testing samples done. So we'll know how expensive it's going to be to tear down a structure.
Is the sampling, is that process expensive as well, though?
No, I gathered that the testing is going to cost more like $100 or $200 as opposed to something like $1,000.
And that's testing that's got to be done anyway.
Someone has to test it. So it's part of what's required by KDHE before you demolish the properties.
So the extra cost on us is basically paying for the officers to come do it. Because the rest of it we'd have to do anyway.
Yes. So it's either
like
that or hire a private company to come do the
just do the
asbestos,
thing.
the asbestos training of the asbestos testing.
Mhm.
And then if there is the presence of asbestos, then that person will need to be on site to monitor the demolition to make sure we're complying with the KDHE rules to keep the fibers from getting into the air.
We have a garage to tear down on the alley off of 8th Street over here.
I believe that one has been removed because that property was sold, and so I believe that they're going to do that themselves.
That probably ended up, they did change hands and the new owners are going to take care of
that
that
place too. So,
Mhm.
So the two structures we have are on
yeah,
Hiawatha and then
right.
on Iowa Street. And one is a shed, which shouldn't have any asbestos, but the house probably, so.
Hmm. I entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to enter into an agreement with the city of Horton that will allow us to utilize trained personnel in asbestos remediation to allow us to move forward with the demolition of condemned properties within the city of Hiawatha.
Second,
And moving second to enter into an agreement with the city of Horton for the asbestos remediation. Any further discussion? If not, Don?
All in favor?
Aye. Motion passed 5-0. Item 7, housing project engineering. Brad?
So for the past several years, with the city of Hiawatha, in conjunction with Hefford, We have been working on a housing project through the Kansas Housing Resources Corporation. And what we've been doing is we've been going after an MIH grant, which is a moderate income housing grant through this organization. And what this does is this allows houses to be built within this city of Hiawatha. There's certain income requirements that come along with moderate income housing. And so these would be duplexes that we're talking about. Some of the feedback that we've had from the KHRC is that our project needed to have some further steps done to this. And one of those steps was having some of this engineering in place. And so while I was thinking about this, and this is really more than just the moderate income housing that we're going after right now. This is going to be for the entire 34-acre site. The moderate income housing portion of this that we've been going after is really going to be sitting on about 3 to 5 acres. And so we will not be building duplexes on the entire site, the 34-acre site out there by west of Bruning Park. This is really going to be targeted towards the area just west of the soccer fields on the south side. And so there's a target area there. And what we would be looking at, this engineering is going to entail surveying, planning, street concept, street layouts. This is going to be grading plans, utility plans. There's a stormwater study that's going to be done there. And so really this is everything that we need to get at least that phase 1 site. We're going to take that to final platting, but there's going to be initial work done on the entire 34-acre site to help us through the process when we do, if we wanted to move forward there. And so what I had done, in conjunction with HEFA, I had asked them to submit letters of support, which they did. I got those today. So when we amended the agenda, those letters of support were attached. And we had letters from Ag Partners, we had letters from Citizens Bank, we had letters from Hiawatha National Bank, Amberwell, Heffett itself, Cooking Company, and GM Bank, I should say, we had that letter of support from. The one from GM Bank was really interesting. They really want to quantify their support for the project, and they have committed to this project, and they really what we're looking for is to keep this project as local as possible. And so I believe in this project. I believe that housing is needed in the city of Hiawatha, and really this step is something that we are going to have to do, and really at any time that we wanted to move forward with housing, this engineering was going to have to be done regardless of the MIH project. And so I'm open to any questions that anybody might have. I have Jason Hoskinson from BG Consultants here as well. If anybody wants to ask him directly any questions, or if he wants to jump in and clarify anything, I'm just open to any questions that anybody might have.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is right now, tonight is just for the civil engineering part of it, which would have to be done if we're going to put duplexes or save it for houses or whatever the case may be. It has to be done regardless.
That is correct, yes.
Jason, how long do you anticipate that your work will take in order to get some documents from you?
Sure. Well, good evening, Mayor and Commission. Good to see you guys. Yeah, we're looking at 4 to 6 months to do kind of the preliminary work, and really what I'd try to target would be making sure we have you in a good spot when it comes time to apply for the next round of funding. Not all the way through to the final, but at least through preliminary steps, the engineering component more or less figured out, 50 to 75% complete stage.
Brad, do we know when that next MIH grant window is?
We do not. They have not announced it yet. The only thing that we've been told at this point is late summer.
Okay, so that may coincide with,
It may.
yeah, okay.
So I'd like to see an overall comprehensive plan of the whole area. How is this particular development going to fit in with potential residential lots in the future? I mean, is this,
And so how this would fit in, and so I did have a map that this is from the MIH project that we have, and so that we had applied for in the past. And so how this concept fits in with that larger concept is this initial phase will be 10 units, and so we'll have 10 lots that we'll have available for building on. The initial phase of this will use 5 of those lots. And so we'll have 5 lots afterwards that'll go to that final platting. That'll still be available for any other type of development. Let's say that, and some of the thinking here is that if the initial phase goes well, there could very well could be a second phase, or the city could decide, we want single family homes on those lots. But really, the overall larger concept here is most of the ground that we're going to be developing on is going to be really geared towards single family homes, is what, at least at this point. It's really up to the commission to decide how they would like that to look. And so when we go through the concept and the engineering, we have a lot of, and Jason, am I correct in saying this, is that we'll have some input into how we kind of want that to look?
Yeah, I'd definitely reach out to the city to see how you want this project to go together and how we can set it up to where this phase 1 supports the growth of future phases and how that looks. But leave it flexible enough to where, like Brad said, if you want to do more duplexes or more single family homes, or maybe a future phase includes multi, apartment type housing, 4plexes, 8plexes, something like that. There's, it leaves the door open for those opportunities to take place with the infrastructure that's built in phase 1.
And just looking through these letters of support that we receive, I mean, there's a lot of the significant employers and players in the city that show that they're very much in support of our need for the moderate income housing. So it would, I mean, we've tried 3 times to get the MIH grant, and we need to do something to make it more appealing to the MIH people. If we show them we're moving forward, and I said, and not just lock in, this is what it has to be, that we have flexibility. I think it'd be silly not to at least, we gotta do something with our application to make it a little different if we have any hopes of it passing, in my opinion.
I think they were looking for more shovel-ready type.
That is correct, yes.
I'd just like to say that from the beginning of this thing, we were gonna give them a small triangle on the other side of the trees to build on, and it was gonna be basically no charge to the city. And now it's shifted to, okay, well, now you guys are supposed to do all the dirt work for this spot, which then that came with money. And now we've shifted to a better location on the property, which doesn't require the dirt work. My concern with the location that it's at now is that it could possibly deter people from building houses onto the north side of the property. Just because of the fact that off your back deck would be that housing complex. I still believe that our original idea of letting them have that triangle on the corner is the best spot for this, because it does leave the rest of it. Correct me if I'm wrong, the 32 acres does include the the soccer fields according to, GPS.
Yes, that's correct. And so it's not, I don't know what the other acreage is as a minus the soccer fields, but you are correct in saying that.
It's about 7 acres. So 32, you're gonna subtract the 7. I mean, I keep hearing that you've got a lot of space over there. Just by doing some numbers on Google Earth, we're only gonna have about 12 acres left of the 32 acres to build houses residentially. Besides, you've got almost 4 acres of trees. You would have maybe enough room, and I'm going to say this, this is probably a high number of maybe 12 houses along the road, the blacktop on each side. And that's about I went off the numbers of Seneca, in their housing development, their newer one out the golf course, it's about 0.75 acres. So yeah, we would be looking at maybe 10 to 12 houses out there. So I just want to reinforce that realistically, we say 32 acres, but there's not 32 acres of building spots there. And when we do this project, the focus of this project needs to be the future, not just getting a grant to build these duplexes. So the duplex need to fit into the larger picture of what we're trying to do and what we're trying to accomplish with this land. This land is the last spot that the city owns that we can build residential houses and expand our town. This has to be done correctly. We do not want to rush it just because we might miss one grant year. It needs to be done right because we can't ever get this back once we do it. So before I was to enter into an agreement with an engineer, I think us as a board need to get together and physically draw something out and say, this is kind of what we're looking at and this is what we want, because this whole thing has just been pushed along, and it keeps getting more expensive to the taxpayer every day. The last thing I want to do is spend $80,000 and nothing ever happened. I totally agree, and I'm totally supporting that. We do, as a city, we need to expand. We need places for people to build houses, but we need to make sure that this is done correctly, and not, our focus point should not be getting a grant for just the duplex houses. If the duplex houses fit into our overall plan for the future of Hiawatha, then great. But I don't feel that we've talked about this as a board at all.
But the way I'm understanding, Brad, correct me if I'm wrong, and Tom, you kind of said the same thing. This civil engineering development has to be done regardless if we're going to do duplexes, apartments, mansions, whatever. It has to be done. So, and you're right, Brian, 77,000 is quite a bit to spend, but if it's something that has to be completed, why do we not start moving forward? That we still have time. I mean, Jason said himself, it's going to be 4 to 6 months before this is even completed. So why do we not go ahead and jump, which is a scary thing when you're talking about that much money. But we need to know how it needs to be, the all the stuff that goes into putting in housing. So,
It's a simple
I know you may not like the duplex idea. I mean, I think I have a different opinion on that because they can be done quite nicely. But I don't know, we keep, at some point, we need to say we're going to do it, and we just need to do it.
Well, I don't have a problem with duplexes, but we need to see a picture of what we want. I mean, you don't buy a house without looking at it first. So why are we in such a rush? Let's get a plan. Let's get together. Let's devise a plan of what we're looking at out there. There's no reason to just jump into this with zero plan.
I mean, it's been 2 years since we've been working on this. So I don't want to say it's been a rush.
But it might be 0 or 2 years that we've been working on it. But has anybody on the board seen a picture or a vision of what we want to see? Has anybody been asked what they would think is a great idea for out there? Other than we need to build these, we need to rush this to get grant money so that we can build duplexes. I just feel that none of us have an idea of what this bigger picture is of what we want to do out there. And again, this is the last land that the city has and owns forever.
And we did have the housing study completed, and I believe that Brad sent that out to us again. That shows the big need of the certain type of housing and the price point we need to look at. So I said I don't know that we're rushing into it. We have an idea, and we've got city leaders who are sending letters of support saying what we need. But
most of the city leaders are HEFID board members, and so that's a little objective in its rights there too. So
Yeah, was that are sending these letters in are also the people that are really looking at this project. I mean, we're looking at, like I said, if you read GM Bank's letter of support there, it's more than just a letter of support that they have in here. They're quantifying their support for this project. And so really, like I said, they've committed to purchasing up to $320,000 in tax credits to get this project off the ground. One of the major problems that we face as a community, and communities like Hiawatha, is getting developers interested in coming here to develop projects, and it is very tough. We went through 2 rounds with one developer. He bowed out for, I'm not sure why he did. I think he had other things going on. And we have a developer that's interested in doing this project now, which is why there is some urgency in order to move this project forward. Now, whether the MIH happens or not, these are still steps that we would need to take in order to get something like this done.
But this civil engineering is only for that area.
No, this
entire area.
It's for the entire lot.
It's for the entire area, but we're just going to be taking this initial area to the final plating. Is that correct, Jason?
Yeah, and I was going to interject a couple thoughts here too, to help with the conversation potentially. That's kind of what the preliminary plating process is about, is figuring out what could it look like, how do these fit on the lot, how do we maximize the usage of the property, or how do we make the property used in a fashion that the city wants to see it develop. So there's a process that we would go through there, and I envision doing that through these summer months of figuring out, well, where would these duplex lots fit? Could there be alternatives? How does it affect drainage, utilities? All of these things go together to figure out what that picture looks like. And yeah, I mean, it'd be great if we get it all done and it all comes together and it's just perfect and we're ready to go for the MIH grant. But if it needs a little more time to massage itself out, it is what it is. Because yeah, once you do this first phase, that kind of sets your path forward for the rest of the development. And you definitely want to make sure you get it right. So. I'm not sure I actually answered the full question though. Yes, we would plan out the whole acreage and look at the drainage as a whole. And then if you're happy with doing the 5 or 10 lots of the initial phase, we would move forward specifically with those areas in greater detail to where you actually plat those. So we may show a concept that shows 100 lots or whatever the number ends up being. And we only plat 10 lots for development now and design the road for those 10 lots and the sewers and all the utilities. But it's been laid out and designed in a fashion to where we've accounted for what the future of the project will look like.
So you'll actually come back with a picture or something we can physically look at and say, hey, this is what we need to look at, or
Yes, for sure. We'll put some engineering thought to it, but at the end of the day, you know, there's a lot of different ways we could split this thing up, and ultimately I'm going to want this commission's input on what that looks like.
I guess I'm in agreement with you, Jason. Like you said yourself, that the first phase of this is almost the most important. And so that's what I'm saying. I don't want to be focused on this first phase and it bruise the rest of the property. And I don't feel that we have any vision for the rest of the property. Right now, we're focusing in on this grant and getting it, hurrying up and getting it. So I guess that's what I'm saying is I'm not against this at all. I think that I think Hiawatha 100% needs this. And I 100% agree that, you know, we need housing, whether it's duplexes, whether it's residential, everything. I just don't know what the rush is to do it right now. I feel that we need to, as a board, need to come together, have a special meeting and see what.
oh,
You muted yourself, Brian.
Oh, sorry. That I was just saying that I'm 100% with this. I know that the city needs all of this, and it is a number one priority for me. And I've said that when in the elections, even, that this is a problem in town. So I'm not saying that I'm against this at all, but I'm saying we as a board need to get together and come up with a vision to give our engineers an idea of where we need to go.
See, but what I'm hearing the engineer say, what I'm hearing Jason say is that's part of the process, is that he will be consulting with us. We'll be sitting down and talking about how we want things to look. And nothing's free anymore. I mean, I don't want to start making a vision of what I think would be good if I don't have an engineer behind me saying, well, yeah, that's going to work. Because I don't know what houses or what can go where without his knowledge, you know, the engineer's knowledge of the drainage and all that stuff. So, I mean, I think we're saying the same thing, Brian. It's just that I'm saying let's move forward and get this going because it has to be done anyway. So instead of us just sitting in a special meeting, just us talking about it, I don't have the knowledge of what needs to be done. I don't know if that makes sense or not. If the rest of you have an opinion on that, not just Brian and I going back and forth.
Now, if we can have a workshop with Jason and his people, like a conceptual discussion on what we want this land to look like, then he can take off and work on the utilities and the roads and all that stuff and come back with a plan for us and see if that works.
a workshop would be nice.
I agree. But that's by saying that, yes, we're going to go into an agreement with him, right? I mean, he's not just gonna workshop.
I would also like to add that when we start talking about roads and infrastructures and all this, do we have a plan to even pay for this? As a city, like my vision for this is totally different than most other people's. One of the biggest highlights that people are looking for in town to build a house is right off of a blacktop road with a good view. My vision is more lacing houses just around the outside of the north and the west side of the property, and not even having any roads in it, and it would be 100% cheaper and very doable without, you know, a long drawn out engineering plan of it. And Jason, I'm nothing against you, but I'm just saying this is my vision of what a beautiful area out there would be. And as I was looking at it today, when you start looking at 0.75 acre lots, possibly even a 1 acre lot, that 12 acres fills up incredibly fast. So this is exactly what I'm talking about, is I don't think anybody's really looked at how fast this land will fill up with bigger lots, that this is what people are looking for, maybe for a possible back shed, enough area for that. This is what I'm saying we need to talk about, I guess. And I'm 100% for this. I just want to make sure we're doing it right and that everybody's on the same page before we spend $100,000 to develop this whole area. I mean, there's a possibility maybe we only need to develop a corner of it or something. I'm not for sure. I don't feel that we've talked about it enough for me to spend $80,000.
To answer your question on the paying for the utilities, that would be what we did with the RHID when we created that district. It's going to use that excess money that we get from whatever does develop on that property. It's going to be using some of that excess money to help pay for those infrastructure improvements.
Okay, well, I mean, what about the roads and stuff like that? We know how expensive roads are.
Yeah, it's there to develop all those things: roads, water lines, sewer, all that. Storm sewer, everything.
And how are you saying you'd pay for that?
With the RHID district that we created through the last MIH project or process.
Okay.
And I also go back to the housing study that shows the bigger need we have is that moderate income housing. I mean, it's the school teachers coming in, it's the mid-level admin and business who are coming in here. Those are the houses we're looking for. I mean, to me, it sounds like you're talking some of the bigger houses, nicer developments. I don't want to say nicer, that's the wrong word. And I'm not saying we can't put some of those in, but if that's all we do, then I don't think we are looking at what the greater need of the city is.
Well,
I want to be able to hire a couple of teachers to come in and work for me, and I want them to be able to afford to buy a house. And in my opinion, I thought that's one of the things we looked at for this area.
well, the one thing that I'm very concerned with is, and I've never interjected in on this, but the rents that they proposed of $1,500, a teacher cannot afford $1,500 a month rent. And so that counts out all of your 40 to 50, 60, 70, I don't want to say 70, 60 to $1,000 jobs. And again, I've had rental properties and the people have a hard enough time paying $800 a month rent. Now, also $1,500 rent in Hiawatha will buy you a very nice house. So for it to be middle moderate housing, $1,500 a month is not logical. It's not even close to being what people can afford. So when you say school teachers and stuff, they can't afford $1,500 a month unless they're not eating. So these are some of the concerns that I don't feel that we've talked about as a board. You know, when this was a private investor, basically, doing this, I didn't feel that it's my place to interject on what he's going to be charging for rent. It's his business proposition. He can do what he wishes with it, but things are starting to change a little bit now. And I do believe, the reason we were denied was because the rent was going to be too high. That was one of the reasons we were denied, because the rent was going to be too high. So there's, again, I'm in support of building something out there, but we need to do this correctly. We need to have a plan and make sure that we're checking all the boxes and not just jumping into it. I got to live somewhere, so I'll just buy a house without ever looking at it. We need a better plan here.
Still saying that in order to have a plan, we have to have the civil engineering completed. I mean, that's bottom line. We have to have civil engineering completed in order to move forward.
Okay, well, I would make a motion to table this for 2 weeks and, let's have a special meeting or something about it this week. And let's come up with a real plan. Again, I'm not against this, but if we pull this to a vote right now, I will be a no vote.
I would just like to add that this is something that I know has been being worked on for a number of years. I mean, there's been a lot of work that's put into this. We've been before the commission at least 3 times now. You know, through every MIH process that we've gone through, you know, there's been a lot of information put out there. There's been a lot of work that's put into this. You know, this is not something that we're springing on the commission at all. There's been a lot of information out there as to what the plan is for, you know, this property out there. And so, like I said, there's just been a tremendous amount of work. This isn't something this is not new, what we're talking about here.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I second.
Been moved and seconded to table the discussion over the housing project. Any further discussion?
It was also to have a special meeting. I don't know if we need to include that, but I just would, again, I would like to have all of us talk about this and hear what everybody's ideas are on this. I know we've been working on it for 2 years, but it seems like we just kind of drop it for 3 or 4 months and then it springs up on the agenda. So.
Any further discussion? John?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
So motion fails 2-3. I would like to make a motion to recommend we enter into a contract with VG Consultants for civil engineering for the development of housing west of the soccer fields at Britton Park for a sum of $77,000 to be paid out of the capital reserve.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the housing project engineering agreement. Any further discussion? If not, Don?
Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And you vote nay on that?
I'm a nay. I couldn't quite hear you.
Motion passed 3-2. Thank you, Jason, for spending your time. I appreciate it. Moving on to communications. Brad, anything?
Nothing to add there. The Highworth Community Foundation did write a letter of thank you for everything that all the support that the city gave them through the Community Foundation match day. So that I thought that was nice. Other than that, it's just the judge's report, the fire runs for May.
Moving on to governing body comments. I wanted to just say thank you to Jody Twombly. She kind of took it on to see if we could find a solution for the planters out front down Oregon Street. Was very positive about it and tried to do as much as she could to make sure we can get something done. And now we have flowers planted in our planters. And it's going to go out nicer. And I appreciate that Don, you helped with that, and Brad, you did as well on your vacation week. So, you know, those are the little things that people notice when they come into the city. Doesn't take a lot, but it's the little details that help. I think that's all I have to say, except for the Community Match Foundation event. That was quite impressive. Over $200,000, I think they said.
Yes, that's correct.
That's exciting to see we have that kind of support. That's what makes me excited about the idea of jumping forward with housing and any other kind of things we can do to make our city grow. So I think we'll have that for a goal. So, Dave?
Brad, I was looking at this Jadwin thing again that I brought up earlier. To drill the holes in the manhole lids, is that part of the original work scope?
It is part of the original work scope. I was thinking about it while discussion was happening. The only thing that I can think is maybe they did some. We do have empty lots here in town. maybe they did some of those. We did give them a list. I can clarify that with them.
Yeah, well, I don't know about their payment, but it just looked long to me that.
I can clarify with them. I think that's probably in my mind, and I'm just guessing at this point, that could have been what happened. I'll find out.
Okay. Well, like I say, I don't want to hold up their payment, but to bill more than what the contract, what the line item is worth, it doesn't seem right to me.
Yeah, when we went out to bid on this, it was with we gave them a list of active services. And so my guess would be that they've been doing some of the lids and active services, empty lots, houses that don't have a meter currently. And so that could be it, but I'll get to it, but I'll find out.
All right, thank you. That's all I have.
Tom?
Yes, I would like to thank Amberwell. They put on a great health show out there at the Fisher Center. And there was a lot of people out there. It was packed from the time that they were open till the time they closed. And it was a good thing to have, I think, for the community. And I'd just like to thank them.
Okay. Anything else?
No,
Okay, thank you. Brian?
Yeah, I've had a number of complaints about the condition of Bruning Field. We actually, one person was telling me that they had even a neighboring town just ask what's going on out there because it's in such rough shape. We really need to address it. I know when I was back home and I went to a game, I did see a member of our community out between games fixing some issues at the mounds and stuff like that. So the fence is in pretty poor shape, and they actually said it's becoming a safety concern, and the fields themselves are curling pretty good again. So even though we're waiting on a tractor, I don't know if we need to get a skid loader out there and do some work, but it's been quite a bit of complaints when I'm even sitting at the game. So I'd just like to see the Bruning Park get some more attention.
That is something that we will prioritize, yes.
All right. And do we have any update on the polls, Brad?
Yeah, so we actually have, what I've done is I have one that it should be in here this week. I want to get it up, make sure that it's the right type of poll these polls are actually quite expensive. They're about $3,000 a piece. And so before I ordered all the polls at the same time, I wanted to get the first one up, make sure that everything was correct before I ordered the other two. Because I really kind of took that project on myself. I have a lot of that electrical knowledge. I used Chad Gobin here for the City of Hiawatha. He has kind of a lot of the same knowledge. And we got together, we ordered the poll. We want to make sure that it's correct. If it's correct, we'll order the other two. But we are getting those up. One should be up, hopefully maybe by the end of the week.
Excellent, thank you. And also did were the downtown businesses, were they informed about the planners that they will be taken care of?
We sent a letter, we were going to send a letter out that we weren't going to be taking care of those. In the meantime, in the time that I had Don prepare the letter, we decided that what happened is we had some projects in the general fund that we didn't pay for this year and that we're not going to pay for this year, which made the money for the planners available. And really that was, like the mayor said, was spearheaded by Jody 12. I know you and I had conversations about this as well. And with that direction, we just went ahead and made the decision to go ahead and pay for those flowers to be in the planter boxes. Wolf River Nursery is going to be taking care of those just like they did last year. It's something that's it's in the budget for next year as well. And so that's how we've moved forward there.
Yeah, and that's wonderful. You got that done. I think everybody will appreciate that. I just if we sent letters out to people saying that you needed to take care of the planters and now we're gonna pay somebody to do it, we need to just make sure all the business owners know that, hey, don't plant flowers now because we are gonna
Yeah.
take care of it.
Luckily, we never sent the letters out. This all kind of coincided together, so it was a kind of a happy coincidence, I guess. So the letters never actually got sent out.
Okay, sorry, it did cut out there for a second, so.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Laura?
The huge pothole on Iowa and Hopi.
Yes.
Where are we at with that? I know part of that is county, part is city.
And so I did have a meeting with County Road and Bridge Department about this. I met with one of the district foremen over at the county courthouse this last week. And so really what we're talking about, I think we had one that was right at Iowa and Hopi. That one got filled, but yet there's another place there that's really, it's falling apart. And so it's right as you come out of, I believe that's Best Way, if I'm not mistaken. That's really the problem area there. And so when we hot mix, and so the plan is that we're going to be bringing in hot mix for Industrial Drive. And so when we bring this load of hot mix in, because it's such a large area, it's too large to put that cold patch in. We could put rock in it temporarily, which would help with the hole itself. It actually may need to be done just because the base is falling apart there. But this is something that we discussed quite in depth last week, actually, with the county. And so really what we want to do is kind of get an understanding with the county on how we're taking care of West Iowa. And so the portions that are ours, the portions that are theirs, really collaborate together and say, do something that's for the good of the taxpayers, whether they're in the county, whether they're in the city. And so, but just to fix the problem that's at hand, that's our plan right now.
Tremendous amount of traffic goes through there.
Yes.
Everybody takes a shortcut right down Iowa Street. So visitors, everyone, and that pothole is just, it has to get fixed.
It does. And I also learned, quite a bit from the meeting that we had that, I wasn't even aware of. Part of the reason why our sides of our roads are kind of narrowing up and the sides are falling apart is because we don't have proper drainage. And so we're getting together, we're going to be working with the county. The city street department actually has a good idea on what to do about that. And so you should be seeing action on that fairly quickly. We may have to rent some equipment to do it, but to get it done properly, but it is something that is doable for us to do.
Okay, thank you, Brad. Nothing else from me.
Brad, I'd like to just comment that I think that it's really great that we're making steps to work with Horton and the county and all these individuals that I don't feel that we've done in the past. So I think that's a big step and a really good thing. So I really appreciate that. I think that's a really good thing for our community.
All right, thank you.
I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moving seconded. Don?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passed 5-0.